You don't sleep?
No, we actually did an all-nighter, but it went to the next day, and then we didn't really stop. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty common from where I come from.
Really? You mean from school?
From school in Asia.
You grew up in Singapore.
Yeah, I grew up in Singapore.
And you grew up playing video games.
Yeah, since I was 4.
Same as the American kids that you go to college with?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, when I come to college, I go to every single dorm room. Everyone has a console, so they'll be playing video games every day. So I fit in that sense.
Does anybody ever say he's playing too much?
People have told me that perhaps I play too much, but I don't think so.
Kenneth, can you describe what it's like, what the experience of being in one of these games that Dr. Walsh described accurately as? I mean, they're almost real.
Yeah, he did describe it very accurately. With the evolution of gaming, and online gaming especially, we are submerged in cyber worlds where we could do anything we can do in a real world. We could do it in a cyber world, anything. And we take on personalities and role-playing. So we take on roles, and we play as characters.
So you can kind of confuse where your life is, in the game or not in the game.
Well, for me, I don't get confused, but when I'm playing, I get myself into the character. I mean, I'm playing it, and I'm literally living another life, put it that way. But then I know how to get back to reality. Have
you ever skipped class?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. I'm skipping class right now, but...
But this is a good thing.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that your mother would approve. Does your mother nag like I have?
She does. I mean, all mothers are very concerned about their kids, and when I started playing games at 4 years old, and I've been playing ever since, I'm sure there are times where she was complaining that I'm addicted to it, and she threatens to take away my computer, and she's taken away my consoles.
Well, why don't you just stop?
It's an interest. I mean, I really love it. It's a passion. Is
it a craving?
No, it's a passion. I mean, you can't tell a dancer to stop dancing. You can't tell a singer to stop singing. Is there something that you like to do? And it's something that I'll probably be doing for the rest of my life, until I can't play anymore. I'm too old to play. But
then why are you here if you're not worried just a little bit?
I am worried just a little bit.
That's what I thought. What a powerful impact these games have when you play them. We put Kenneth to the test. He wired himself up, and we'll see what the results are when we come back.
Tomorrow on the Jane Pauley Show, your kids have grown up and moved out, but are they adults?
I'm not sure what I want to do when I'm...
Video game addiction. Kenneth, here, you have played all your life, but now that you're here in college and you're on your own, do you find it a little harder to discipline yourself, to govern how many hours you spend?
I'm still doing pretty okay in college, still getting my A's, but yeah, I mean, it's difficult to try to balance a college life where you have a lot of activities and clubs, meetings to go to, and you meet a lot of people. I mean, I'm an international student, so I meet a lot of people. And it gets increasingly more difficult, but then everyone loves to play video games. So you could call friends over and still socialize while playing games. So I guess you just have to find a balance. You have to be more disciplined.
Did you know what effect the playing games had on you physically? Were you aware of that?
I was very surprised. I didn't expect my blood pressure to go up and my heart rate to go up. And yeah, I am surprised. I mean,
I was surprised too. I want to show everybody there is a way to measure the physiological impact that video games have on a player like Kenneth. Let's see.
The game we have for Kenneth today is a fighting game, and we've shown in past research that the violent video games tend to cause a little bit more of an increase in physiological arousal, like blood pressure and also hormones in your body, like adrenaline. We're going to monitor Kenneth with a portable heart rate, blood pressure, and EKG monitor. Kenneth's blood pressure is very normal for a man his age, 22-year-old male. He's gone up to 140/69 just as we're about to start playing the game. So Kenneth's getting excited, anticipating playing, and it's actually the anticipation of the event that causes more physiological arousal sometimes than the actual event. At this point, Kenneth's heart rate started about 85 beats per minute. Once he's about 3 minutes in, we're at the 3 to 5 minute mark right now, his heart rate's already gone up to 120 beats per minute. It's about a 40% or so increase in heart rate. Even though heart rate and blood pressure may go up like you might see with exercise, it's different from exercise. This would be considered a behavioral stressor. This is at the 20-minute mark now. At this point, you can see his blood pressure has gone up to 155/77, which would be considered hypertension. One thing we see with people who are addicted is that over time, they need to play more and more in order to achieve the same amount of arousal. So Kenneth's been playing about 30 minutes at this point, and his blood pressure during the last round maxed out at 190/144. Now, that's significant hypertension. I would be a little concerned having physiological arousal as significant as what we saw with Kenneth today.
And did you feel any sense of that?
Yeah, it was getting pretty intense.
Did you win or lose?
I won some, I lost some. It's a one-by-one basis thing.
Do you think the losing is when it kind of spikes up to the scary level?
I mean, it's more like when you're about to lose or about to win, and then you actually win or you actually lose, and it's like, you know.
Yeah. What do we make of these numbers, Dr. Walsh?
You know, I think the numbers are just an indication of how engrossing and how powerful, what an impact these games can have. I mean, from blood pressure to go from about 115 up to 190 while playing a game just is an indication of how powerful they are. Now, one of the things that Dr. Lynch didn't measure, but if we had, he mentioned it, but if we had measured chemicals that were going on in his brain, what we would see is an increase in the same chemicals, Jane, that are involved in different addictions like cocaine use, things like that. The exact same chemical reactions.
Not everyone who plays is addicted.
Absolutely not.
But what do you think about Kenneth?
If I were, you know, I've developed a test, 20 questions. And as I think of those 20 questions, what I've heard you say so far in your conversation with Jane is that you would answer yes to most of those questions.
If so, what would you recommend?
Well, I would recommend, because Kenneth's, first of all, Kenneth, you're smart and you're honest, because you're willing to talk about this. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that. So what I would suggest to you is that you give yourself a test, that to see if you really can stop. See, an addiction means I can't stop. I want to, I think I can, but I really can't. And the way to test that out is that what I would suggest is over the next 2 weeks, you and I enter a little agreement, and you don't play for 2 weeks, and see what that's like, see how that feels. Because if you start to get real depressed and real irritable and real angry, that could mean that you're much more attached to that game than you want to be.
Don't go away, stick around. Do you know a college-age kid who could be a video game addict? Some warning signs and symptoms next.
When you get hurt in a car wreck, you need lawyers who aren't afraid to fight for you. You call...
Bigger than you think. This is hard to comprehend. But last year, video games overtook movie box office. And nothing puts it in context quite like this. The newest game sensation went on the market and took in more money in the first day than The Incredibles did in its opening weekend. It is huge. And I think my children are responsible for all of it. I do know something about gamers like Kenneth. We're talking about guys on this show, kind of 21 give or take, 20, 21, 22. But is there any reason to think that as they age, the problem won't go with them through life?
It certainly could. You know, the gamers that are in their 20s today were, just as Kenneth started when he was 4 years old, they were in their teens or preteens 10 years ago. And, you know, for some of those gamers, they keep playing more and more and get more and more into the game. Of course, that's not everybody, because some people, you know, gaming is fun. It's something that they do, and they can take it or leave it. It's not that they don't enjoy it. They do. But it's got its place, and it doesn't start to take over.
What's the drug, if you will, involved that makes video games potentially addictive to some?
Well, you know, what happens in the brain, Jane, is that the playing video games, and we know this from research, is that the brain starts to release the feel-good chemical. It's called dopamine. It also starts to release some of those real energizing chemicals, adrenaline, norepinephrine. And that's what led to the blood pressure rise that we saw in Kenneth. That's what led to the increased heart rate. And that can be a very, very powerful mood-altering experience. So for a lot of gamers, the most exciting thing that they do, what makes them happiest during their entire day, is when they're in the midst of a game.
So it's not really the game, it's play. This sounds a little self-evident, but it's playing the game and the effect of playing the game that one craves.
Yeah, it's a mood-altering experience. And for some people, that mood-altering experience becomes the favorite thing that they do. There's nothing else that they would rather do. And that's where you have to really start to be careful.
Is there anything inherently bad about loving something and playing it a lot?
No, absolutely not. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying a really good video game. This is not anti-video game talk. This is that it's a powerful technology, and because it's a powerful technology, it has the potential for some players to be a two-edged sword.
What do you think is the potential of players for whom that is
well,
risky?
the research that we've done would show that about 20%, or about 1 out of 5 players.
Really?
Yes. Have all of the behavioral characteristics of an addiction. In other words, if you took the word cocaine out of their description and put in video games, all the descriptors would fit.
You have some warning signs, 7 symptoms that one might look for over the big screen behind us. What, I'm looking at myself for signs, or I'm looking at a child, perhaps.
See, the intense pleasure, that's what we were talking about earlier, is that there's really nothing else that I'd rather do than playing. That's where I'm getting all my good feelings increasingly.
Nobody knows that but the gamer.
Right, exactly. But at the same time, I feel guilty because I'm neglecting responsibilities, I'm not hanging out with my friends, you know, I'm skipping class. And so there's some guilt involved, too.
In combination with obsessing.
Obsessing, and that means when I'm not playing the game, I'm thinking about playing the game. So even when I'm not at the console, it starts to take over the rest of the room in the attic up here. And then neglecting things is, you know, we've already mentioned that, so that I start to let other responsibilities go. Neglecting my health, neglecting my sleep, neglecting nutrition, neglecting responsibilities, neglecting relationships, and the list can go on and on.
I think one reason I don't worry too much about Kenneth is because he is taking responsibility for those things. So if he feels like he's on the hairy edge of something, he's still...
Yeah, and Kenneth was also real honest. You know, Kenneth is a really neat young man.
Lying.
And one of the things that you really have to watch out for is when you find yourself starting to lie. You know, that, oh, I really don't play that much, and did you play yesterday? No, I didn't, but I really did. And what I'm doing is that I'm protecting the source of my good feelings. You know, and when any of us really, really like something, and somebody starts to want to get in the way of it, we want to protect it. And so lying is one way to do that. Sometimes the anger and depression is when I can't play. Someone stops me, and so I get real irritable. Unable to control. See, I say, I think I'm going to play for an hour, and I end up playing for 3. I think I'm not going to play today, and I end up playing all afternoon. And so, you know, I tell myself, well, I could control it, but what I have to do is watch my behavior. The phrase that I use is watch their feet. Not what they say, but what they do. And then for some people, there's even bills involved. You know, they're spending more money on video games than they really should be able to afford. You know, these games aren't cheap. They can cost, you know, 40, 50 bucks.
Or you lose your job twice.
Yeah.
And before we finish the show today, you'll meet that young man who literally lost 2 jobs. He has a lot to say. But first, a son's addiction leads to a mother's plea for help. Her story is next.
Most people want to get in better shape, but they just don't.
Its formula penetrates and helps heal dry, rough foot skin. Gold Bond.
How hard it is to sit helplessly by and watch someone you love getting lost in a fantasy game. How many parents share Colleen's experience, or will, when their video gamer grows up and is still glued to the screen? Colleen, you're the mother of 4.
Yes.
Like all of us, you worry about all your children, but it's your oldest son that is on your mind right now. What's the story?
Absolutely. My son is 20. He was the ideal child, fabulous student through high school, never any issues whatsoever, and he went off to college and started to interact with the online gaming. And I wasn't aware of it. I didn't know until recently, when I've started to notice that it is taking over his life.
Well, he's at home now, so
Yes.
he's come home. He lives back at home.
Yes.
And how much do you actually interact with your son who lives under you?
Every day.
But
every day.
He's playing.
He's playing every day.
How much
He's
every day?
very gracious. Whatever I ask him to do, he does. However, his life is consumed. How often? Let me think. He wakes up about noon, he's on about 1, and he'll play until about 3 in the morning. On and off, with breaks in between.
And
Kenneth, I think, would understand.
Need I ask why? Why does this worry you?
Well, I feel like his life is being taken over with this game. He's not working. He's going to be going back to school in the fall, and I'm concerned when he returns to school that the same events will take place.
Why would they otherwise? Because...
Right.
What, do you speak to him? Does he listen?
I do. I say, can you stop playing? Can you just, let's go see a show. Let's do something. But his response is, when I do decide, that's it, you know, no more today, that these are his friends. The people inside this game are who he communicates with. He's very good at the game. He's very good at what he does. And he said to me at one point, taking away the game is like taking away my friends. Would you do that to, you know, his brothers? No, I would not.
Does he have a plan for the future?
He has a plan to go back to school in the fall, and I only can hope and pray that everything works out. Actually, we went to family counseling over this. My whole family is now in counseling because we felt that he was withdrawn so much into the game,
He was
into
taking
the world.
family with him, in a way?
Well, absolutely. I'm concerned for him. My husband's very concerned for him. His siblings, they don't notice so much.
The counseling didn't make a difference?
It has made a difference, but not... He wasn't honest with her, I don't believe, in all aspects of how often he plays. And
Did she know a good deal about video gaming?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Dr. Walsh, you told us that there's one video game therapist that you know about.
One who's making, you know, a practice of it, and it's because the problem is so new that a lot, what Colleen and her family ran into is that a lot of professionals don't understand. They think that the video game is just a symptom of some other problem. Now, there may be some other problems that need to be addressed, but they're not going to be addressed if the addiction is not taken care of.
I think one could hope that he'll just wake up one day and see the light.
Yes.
It happens.
Yes,
You'll
it
hear
does.
about it next.
Wonderful.
Today we've been talking about video games and how some of America's youth has turned their obsession into an addiction. One of them was 22-year-old Caesar. You have no doubt about it. You were addicted?
Yeah, definitely. I'd have to say I was.
Well, describe to me what your life was like.
Well, I had a job at the time when I started playing the game, but as soon as the internet came about and I started playing the game through the internet, that's when it really caught my attention more.
Once again, this online thing we've been talking about. All right.
I would pretty much just wake up, play the game, and go to work. And then when I come home from work, just stay up the whole night, play the game until the next day.
And then go to work.
Yeah, I'd be pretty tired going to work, but...
well, at least you were there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you didn't go, maybe.
Yeah, well, no, I always went to work, but that's the reason why I lost my job for the first time, because I fell asleep during, you know.
Did you say you lost your job the first time?
Yeah.
There was another time?
There was another time, but it was just like through bad habits of just being tardy. But that's really irrelevant.
Well, was the gaming related to that too?
Not as much so as the first time.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Now, you went all the way through high school, and you were not particularly intoxicated by video games. You were an athlete. When you left high school, is that the absence of athletics? Did you miss?
Yeah, I would have to say that. Yeah, and then the game and then the competitive aspect of that. And then I got drawn to that and I started playing the game just as if I was just playing basketball. Like, you know, I put all my time into the game other than just like a sport.
If you were happy in this fantasy world, what happened that got your attention and made you think that you weren't entirely in control of this anymore?
Well, I mean, I started noticing I was like really addicted when I was just like malnourished looking. You know what I mean? A little unhealthy looking.
Seriously, like you stopped eating?
Well, I would eat, but I wouldn't eat healthy. You know what I mean? I wouldn't eat like meals that I normally eat now. I just eat whatever was there. I wouldn't go like food shopping and buy like, you know, good stuff.
And you weren't athletic anymore?
Nah, not at all. I was just out of shape. I was probably like 185 pounds at the time. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
And what are you weighing today?
Today I'm like 222.
Shaking hands with you was a significant experience. This is a big guy.
Big guy,
yeah. So, how did you see the light? That was your expression. How did you see the light?
That was it. Like, I'd say about maybe 2 years after my whole phase of playing video games, I realized I was looking at myself in the mirror. It was around springtime. Starting to get really, you know, nice weather was coming, summertime, female situation. I was just, you know, realizing I had to do something else. And also, like, I wasn't really concentrating on my future. I was just playing this game, and I was getting nothing in return. Like, I wasn't making money or anything, and it was just a waste of time.
How old are you now?
I'm 22.
22, yeah. You working?
Yeah, right now I'm working.
Yeah. What, if you were addicted, and I'm wondering if you were, because you were able to gain mastery over something, and I would think that it would have been hard for you to give it up if you were...
It was hard. You know, I had a really good job. It was probably the best job I've had so far, and I was working at a cell phone company. But I lost the job because I was just playing the game way too late, getting an hour of sleep, going to work late. You know what I mean?
You are an example of someone who at 22 maybe did become mature enough and grown up enough to leave the playthings of childhood behind. That's a hopeful sign, don't you think, Colleen?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. Very happy to see it.
But is it rare, Dr. Walsh? I know you're looking at this young man intently, and is there any doubt that he was addicted?
No, I think you described, Caesar, all of the things that would really go into an addiction. You know, consumed all your time. How was your social life?
I really had no social life.
No social life. So the game
besides with the people like on the other end of the mic, as Colleen was saying before.
And you're kind of a gregarious guy, too. I would think that you grew up with friends.
Yeah, well, yeah, basically.
I mean, you got a nice personality, you're good looking, and yet the game became your life. And even after you lost your job, you continued to play. You know, kind of a common sense way to look at addiction is when something's causing me pain, then common sense would say, stop it.
At one point, you lost your job, maybe it was the second time, but you thought, great, more time to play the game.
That's exactly what I thought. Like, I was working. As soon as my boss came in, I knew the day I was going to get fired because I was late. And I was like the third, you know, consecutive day I was late. And I knew he came in, and he never comes in unless he has bad news. And he came in, and he told me to go in the back, and we were having the conversation. And I wasn't even listening to any word he was saying. I was just thinking, I was like, all right, good, I got some more time for the game. And I was just, like, excited about that. And then I actually went home that day, and there was a forum I used to write on to talk to other gamers online, but I used to, like a forum. It was on a website. And I explained to them the whole story and how excited I was. And I was just, like kind of bragging about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was pretty pathetic.
Well, welcome back to the world,
I know.
Caesar.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Well, I hope you have a good job, because I think that you'd be a wonderful employee now that you're back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Up next, the prevention is probably the best medicine, and you're thinking that if you've got a pre-adolescent playing video games.
Welcome to Ashley.
7 Umbrella. Unwrap the fun of Hershey Park's 10 roller coasters and 6 water rides. Contest ends May 25th, only on ABC 27. Tonight, dangerous lightning, hurricane-force winds. Advance notice could save your life.
Knowing the weather in Florida is a matter of life and death.
So why do some lawmakers want to take away your right to get certain weather reports? Find out on World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
I think Caesar's got a lot of fans here in the studio audience and probably at home as well. I've got Dr. David Walsh here with me again. When Colleen was sitting here and talking about her son and in a story that, I don't know, if hundreds of thousands or millions of mothers are nodding their head in painful understanding, I was hoping that you would have some specific strategies so that Colleen could go home and implement something in her life or her family's life or her son's.
You know, she's got a real challenge on her hands because Kenneth is willing to take a look at the fact that he might be addicted. In fact, he told me when we looked at that list of symptoms that we were talking about earlier, when I sat next to him, he said, I've got those symptoms. And Caesar has gotten to the point where he says, I was addicted. I know that I need to do something. Colleen's son isn't at that point, and because he's really unwilling to look at it. See, he's in that what we call sincere delusion. He really thinks that it's not a problem, and he really believes that. And so what has to happen is that he needs to understand that this has taken over his life, and he's paying a big price for that. And what we call that is an intervention. And so what that means is that I would really hope that Colleen could find somebody who could help pull together all of the people in her son's life that really care about him and love him, and be real level with him and be real honest and say, this is what I'm worried about. It's not a mean thing, it's a caring thing.
But wait a minute, are you implying that, and I'm being a little sarcastic here, that those friends online are not really friends?
Well, you know, I'm not saying that they're not friends, but the people in his real world, you know, those are the people that he really needs to establish relationships with. And those are the people that he's neglecting.
But if they do an intervention, as you described, what's the next step? I mean, Colleen has been to family counseling. It was sort of effective, but not really.
Yeah, I think you really need to work with somebody who really understands addiction. You know, we started off this program, Jane, saying that this is something that's just getting on the radar screen. Even a lot of professionals. I work with a lot of professionals, and I say, you know, we need to understand that this is a problem in and of itself. It may not be the only problem, but, you know, some professionals address it like this. You know, imagine a pile of gasoline-soaked rags in the basement that breaks into flames. Well, somebody runs downstairs and says, well, the problem is the gasoline-soaked rags. Well, that might be true, but we're not going to do anything about that until we put out the fire. And so the first thing that has to be done is to put out the fire. Now, this is brand new. You know, what we're talking about today is just, it's not brand new to a lot of millions of people who are dealing with it. We're getting calls at the National Institute on Media and the Family every day. What we're going to do at the National Institute is we're going to set up a separate special part of our website at mediawise.org. And we're going to do some online counseling. We're going to try to help people understand the signs and symptoms and then direct them to the resources that can really be helpful.
Well, the pity of it is that the video games are interesting, they are fun, they have value in certain respects.
Sure.
It's just that there are some people who can't go there normally.
Exactly, just like alcohol. I mean, wine, alcohol is a good thing, and most people can have a drink and then put it down. Just like video games. Some people play video games, they enjoy it, they really like it, but it's just a part of their overall life. When it starts to take over, that's when the damage gets done.
I advertised that we would show some things that parents of pre-adolescent children might want to be looking for again, and here they are. This is a different list than the one before. How old are we thinking? How old are these children we're thinking about now?
Oh, I think we're hearing from parents whose kids are as young as 9, 10, 11 years old, so even preteens, but certainly teenagers. And it's, you know, is when the game takes over their non-school hours. And for some kids, it even breaks into their school hours. Kids skip class to play, you know, but the game really consumes a lot of their time. They're tired. And the reason they're tired is because they're spending hours and hours playing the game. They're not getting any exercise. They're not eating well. They're not keeping up with their schoolwork. Sometimes the grades start to suffer. And so that, that's some of the price that these kids are paying. Lying. I've talked to kids who have said, who have told me, I play when I come home from school, and my mother and father come home at 6 o'clock, and they say, did you get your homework done? They say, yeah, I did my homework when I got home from school. They didn't do their homework when they got home from school. They were playing their game. There are some kids, for example, who get up in the middle of the night. Everybody's asleep. They're up in their bedroom playing the game.
I could see that would be a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why they're sleepy. One of the other things that happens is that their entire social group starts to change. So things that they used to be interested in, hobbies, sports, start to go by the wayside. All of their friends become gamers. Now, there's nothing wrong with gamers. They're not bad people. But when all of my friends are gamers, then that starts to reinforce its importance in my life. For some kids, they drop out of all of their other activities. And then what really gets tough is that when that irritability is probably putting it mildly. I've had parents literally tell me, Jane, if you can believe this, that when they told their son, in this case, that you can no longer play the game, we're going to remove the console, their son said, if you do that, I will kill you. And they called me because they believed that that's what he meant. And it was just, whether he would or not, that's how angry he got when somebody threatened his game playing.
Oh, never mind that extreme example,
right.
But is removing it, of course removing it is an option. You're
Absolutely.
a parent.
Yeah, and it should be the last option. I think what's really important is prevention in the first place, and I think this is particularly true for parents of younger kids. If your son or daughter is going to play games, and by the way, most of the people who get into problems with the addiction are males. There are some girls, but not nearly as many. 42% of the online gamers in a national survey said that they considered themselves addicted. So this online gaming, which is becoming more popular, is really something that we need to pay attention to. But prevention is key, and that means, right up front, making sure that everybody understands the ground rules, when, where, how much, what kind of games. And so the rules are all ahead of time. I think it's really important to keep the consoles out of kids' bedrooms. See, when they're in a public place in the home, then a parent is able to kind of have an idea and monitor how much is going on.
Kenneth, Caesar, just curious, your friends, were the game controls in the bedroom or in a public room?
It was in my bedroom.
Yeah, it was in my room.
Yeah, it's always in the bedroom. It is always in the bedroom. Oh, we always have heard that it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
For a decade we've heard that. It's always in the bedroom.
Yeah. Maybe
it shouldn't be. There are good games, but which ones? How to find out.
Net Zero. Join the millions. Go to netzero.com.
Hey, Mom, Coach wants us to eat something good before every game. So when's your first game? Now? Oh.
Hot Pockets brand with 8 essential vitamins and minerals. Balanced eating. On the go.
Hot Pockets!
There's this club down the street that's fun, so I go in and shoot this woman in the head. And people are screaming and running all over, and there's blood everywhere. There's this cop next to me who sees what I did. He's got body armor, so I can't shoot him. So I throw gasoline on him and light it, and he screams and runs around, and he died. There's this prostitute, and they're super hard to kill. So I grab a machete and cut her head off.
Oh my, oh my, oh my. I guess you got to know what the kids are up to, but, they go to the store and they buy the games themselves, and then they come home and play them, and they're quiet in their room, and it's frightening. Would that there was this E-rated Jane Pauley Show game, such as I am holding. Yes, Jane and her little animal friends play in the barnyard, but what does the East... What what does an E like this?
All the games are rated, and E means for any age. So those are the games that parents can be comfortable with, even for the younger kids.
Yes.
And actually, the industry has just announced that they're going to do an E10 rating for the kids who are a little bit older. We haven't seen that yet, but we will be.
Different barnyard.
Yeah, right.
All right. Now, what am I holding now? This is...
Now we're T for teenagers. And, you know, the industry rates these games, and what they say is that this might contain some violence and some things like that, not appropriate for younger kids, but okay for teenagers.
Are you aware that any of these games are more or less addictive? Are we getting progressively more addictive, or is that not
the more
a factor
realistic,
at all?
The more realistic the game, the more addictive it is. Unfortunately, this online phenomenon seems to be much more addictive than even the console games, as we've heard even from the other guests today.
I don't know. I wonder about solitaire. There are a lot of people who I do believe are addicted to something. Yeah, you know what I mean. All right. The M?
This is one that parents should pay attention to, because this means that the industry itself says these games are not appropriate for preteens or teenagers, only 17 and older.
Which somehow is how they all go get them.
Yes, and that's really something that parents need to be aware of. Yeah. You know, I think it's unfortunate that it's M, because mature kind of is a positive thing. Yeah. Whereas in the, in the movie industry, they say R for restricted. But be that as it may, parents should know that M games are not for kids or teenagers. Which
makes the A for adult even sillier.
There's another rating, AO, for adults only. You know, the good thing, Jane, is that major retailers will not sell those games. They'll only go as far as M. So, but parents should be aware that if you see an M or an AO game in your house, and we're talking about kids, not a good match.
Kids are pretty smart, though, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So you got to know what I mean. You know what I mean? All right. Thanks to Dr. David Walsh. I'm glad we got you back. And all of our guests today, Colleen and Kenneth, very, very proud of you. And Caesar, you're the man. Very proud of you.
Thank you.
For more information about today's show, go to our website, thejanepauleyshow.com. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Pollywog